That is why we have so many earthquakes here, and believe it or not, 130 active volcanoes in the state of Alaska. So I used to say, up until November 30th, 2018, oh, I love earthquakes. Earthquakes were great. We had a 4.8 just a few days ago. I mean, those are just normal little earthquakes that we have all the time. But on that day, my wife and I had moved out of our house. All my children had left home. My daughter had started her freshman year in college. We had a 7.2 earthquake. It lasted for 55 seconds. I'm an avid sports fan. I was watching SportsCenter like I do every morning. The earthquake hit at 7:50 in the morning. My television on my dresser starts jumping up and down a foot in the air. Jumps off my dresser, lands on the ground, smashes to a million pieces. So the next day I had to go to Best Buy like everybody else. I'm waiting in line. I get up to the counter, and the lady at the Best Buy counter says, "Sir, we just broke the record for the most televisions sold in one day in Best Buy history." And then she said something quite peculiar that I didn't quite understand. She said, "Did you learn your lesson?" And I looked at her and I said, "Well, I didn't move." I said, "I did buy a wall mount." And she said, "Oh, I noticed that you didn't buy the insurance." And I said, "Yeah, I look at it this way. My TV is going to be safely secured to my wall." I said, "If it breaks this time, that means my wall has collapsed." I told her, "I'll have way bigger things to worry about than a broken TV." And she said, "That's a really good point." In 1964, we had 131 people pass away. But the population of Anchorage in 1964 was only 50,000 people. We're 6 times as big now. In 2018, we didn't have anybody die, but we had 2 really close calls. One was a gentleman that was taking his rental car back to the airport, and the overpass by the airport collapsed, and he fell approximately 25 feet. But he did not get hurt. He was able to get his luggage, walk about a mile to the airport, give the rental car keys to the lady, tells the lady, "Hey, my car's back there about a mile, the overpass collapsed. Thank heavens I have insurance. I have a flight to catch. I need to get the heck out of here." The second gentleman was on the Seward Highway, but he was coming north in a semi-truck. He had dropped his supplies off in Seward. He felt the earthquake, so he stops his semi-truck waiting for the earthquake to stop. And all of a sudden there was a small rock slide, and then a rock the size of a small vehicle landed on the hood of his semi-truck, totaled his vehicle, but he escaped with minor injuries due to the broken glass from the windshield. But just imagine if he was 3 or 4 feet farther forward, that rock would have came on the roof of his cab and he would have been squished like a bug. So after that earthquake in 2018, a couple things happened I didn't really think about. One, we had thousands and thousands of aftershocks. So after you have a big earthquake, you're going to have aftershocks. Basically, the Earth's crust is settling itself. And so it was a really scary experience for all of us. So a lot of us, me included, suffered from PTSD after that event. So you think about it, you're in a really scary experience when you're having these aftershocks. And your body's in this fight or flight mode, and you're thinking, is this the big one? Is this the one that's going to take me out? And the second thing that happened, because we had so many aftershocks, just imagine you're hanging out with your friends, and you'd have an aftershock that lasts about 10, 15 seconds. You'd say, oh, that's about a 4.2. You would get instant access on your phone to tell you how big the earthquake was. We all became amazing amateur seismologists. Those are the people that tell you how big the earthquake was. So I didn't mind a little earthquake here and there, but not constant earthquakes, non-stop, all day long. It was terrible. So I told you earlier, that rail was built in 1915. This road that we're driving on today was built in 1951. It was redid in the year 2000. This road is considered the most scenic road in North America, one of the most scenic roads in the world. I tell people it is a postcard around every corner. And this is my office all year round. I've been a tour guide for the last 15 years. So I'm not just a summer tour guide, I'm a winter tour guide. And go out in the winter time. People go, what do people do up here in the winter time? Well, the majority of the people that come up to Alaska in the winter time, they come up here to see the northern lights. But in the summer, there's 30 different companies that go out and basically do the Tourniquet Arm Tour. In the winter, there's only 3. There's only 3 of us that do it. So we don't have a lot of people doing it. And it's, summertime is way busier. But I'm going to tell you right now, when my friends in the lower 48, Hawaii calls it the mainland, I call it the lower 48. When they ask, when should I come to Alaska, I only tell them there's only 2 months that I would come to visit if you're from the lower 48. And that is June and July, the 2 months that you guys are here. For one, all the fish are in, the salmon and the halibut, and we have all the daylight, and it's the best weather. August is our rainiest month. September is our second rainiest month. And September, occasionally we do get snow starting in September. So, late September, but still September. Yeah, I always say my tours are educational and entertaining. You guys will learn something today. I promise. And I'll be going out on the boat with you guys today. It's been beautiful. We've been seeing a lot of animals lately. Actually, this year, I probably have seen more bears in the wild than I have in all my other years of doing this. And it's because of the temperature. It hasn't been really that hot this summer. It's only hit 70 degrees 3 times this summer. That's it. So it's been really hot in the lower 48, but up here it's been really mild. And the bears, they like mild temperatures. When it gets too hot, above 70 degrees, you don't see them. They're going to be out in the shade, taking it easy, and wait until nighttime to come when it gets a lot cooler. But this year, it's been so mild, they're just out running around doing stuff. So what we're going to do today, we're going to be catching the 3 o'clock boat. There is a 4:30 boat, but we want to catch the 3 o'clock boat. It's less people on it. I'll be going on the boat with you. I'll be telling you where to stand, where to get your best pictures, what to do, how to do it. Then after we get off the boat, we're going to go over to the Portage Glacier Lodge. Usually people are cold after they get off the boat. You get some hot chocolate, coffee, get some snacks, and we'll be going over to the Conservation Center and see all the animals. And I'll be telling you the backstories of all the animals, giving you the history of the area. So every day I drive by on this road, there's going to be a little dome stadium coming up on our left-hand side. Does anybody have a guess what is inside this dome stadium? We'll see it in just 1 second. Let's pop it up right now. This little dome stadium on the left-hand side. What is your guys' best guess? What do you think's in there? Believe it or not, it is an indoor driving range for golf. We actually golf in Alaska from May through September. We have another one of those stadiums across town by my wife and I's condo. And in 2017, we had so much snow that winter that it collapsed, it popped. And it cost $1 million to replace it. I told my wife, I said, that's a lot of money for a hot air balloon. She's like, well, hopefully they have good insurance. So they replace it. And they replaced it with the exact same structure that was there before. And I told her, do they know something we don't know? Well, we're not supposed to get any more snow, but maybe it was reinforced on the inside. But from the outside, it looked exactly the same. But we've had above average snowfall the last 2 winters. And it's still standing, so hopefully it's still good. Because if I was their insurance company and it collapsed due to snowing again, I'd be like, I ain't paying that. So directly in front of me, these mountains right here, these are the Kenai Mountains. In the lower 48, that would be like the Colorado Rockies and the Appalachians, 2 distinct mountain ranges. Here, they're less than 5 miles apart. And at the base of those Kenai Mountains is going to be Turnagain Arm. Turnagain Arm was carved out by a glacier about 20,000 years ago. And scientists knew that that glacier was between 3,000 and 4,000 feet tall. And how they knew about how tall that glacier was. So once we get down here around the corner a little bit, you're going to look at the edges of the mountains. You're going to notice that the edges have been all smoothed over. So when that glacier was carving through it, it was collecting material. It was kind of like a piece of sandpaper on a piece of wood. And then when that glacier receded and melted, all that material was deposited in that Turnagain Arm. That is called glacial silt or glacial flour. It is as fine as talcum powder. That is basically quicksand out there. You do not want to walk out there. Even though it looks like a nice sandy beach, that is not the case. Coming up on our left-hand side, the area is going to be called Potter's Marsh. Potter's Marsh is the best description of what old Anchorage, before 1915, the whole town used to look like this. What you're seeing today is a lot of sand, gravel, and dirt, asphalt, and concrete. But before that, it all looked like this over here. Great for moose, good for fish, amazing for migratory birds. We get Canadian geese, trumpeter swans, sandhill cranes, and a very famous little bird that the National Geographic and Discovery Channel come here every year to film and document. The name of this bird is called the Arctic tern. This bird is only 8 inches tall and only weighs about 3 ounces. But what makes this bird so special, it has the biggest migratory pattern of any bird in the world. When it goes south, it goes all the way south. It goes all the way to Antarctica. So it turns on the Arctic, turns on the Antarctic. It travels approximately 22,000 miles in its migratory pattern every year. They said in its lifetime, it'll travel the distance to the moon and back 3 times. It lives over 30 years old for a little teeny bird. It's pretty impressive. So directly in front of us, that is called Hillside. Hillside is where the most expensive homes are. Yes, the views are amazing, and I love all the wildlife up there, but here's a couple reasons why I would never want to live up there. In the wintertime, we average about 75 inches of snow at the bottom of the bowl. They can get up to 150 on Hillside. We get winds called the Chinook winds or the Pineapple Express. It's warm, moist air that comes from Hawaii that can blow up to 100 miles an hour at the bottom of the bowl. Get up to 150 on Hillside. But here's the number one reason why I'd never want to live up there.
Bears.
Nope. Forest fires.
Oh.
Forest fires. There are no fire hydrants up there. There's only 2 major access roads to get off that mountain. We had a forest fire that happened in 2017 that you're going to see remnants of, and you're going to see how close that came to burning all those houses down. I compare the side of that mountain to California with the Santa Ana wind. You always see on the news every year that the expensive homes burning down. I tell people it's not about if, but when that is going to happen. It'll eventually happen. Hopefully not anytime soon, but it will happen. We had an infestation of a little beetle about 30 years ago called the spruce bark beetle. Spruce bark beetle is not like a termite. It doesn't bore into the tree. It just gets into the bark. But when it does that, it kills its host. And then it moves on to the next tree. There's a lot of dead spruce trees up there that are over 30 years old. And literally, if you took a match to one of them because of all the sap and pitch on that tree would go up like gasoline. So it wouldn't take that much for a little bit of a spark. No fire hydrants, only a couple major access roads. Forest fire, that's the main reason. I don't mind bears at all. I see bears all the time. I'm from Alaska. I've been here a long time. Bears are part of our life. But right out here,
that's a swamp. Look like it.
Oh, this is Turnagain Arm. This is salt water coming in from Cook Inlet. This is Turnagain Arm. This was carved out by a glacier 20,000 years ago.
Yikes.
That might look like a nice sandy beach out there, but that is basically quicksand. Turnagain Arm has the 4th strongest tide in the world. From extreme low tide to high tide is as much as 38 feet. I want everybody to take a close look at what it looks like right now. Because when we come back today, it's going to look radically different than this.
Which means whoever step in there, they're not going to make it out alive. That's it.
So what's going to happen, you're not going to sink over your head. You're going to sink in that mud. And nobody's going to be able to go get you. You're not going to be able to get out. And then that tide comes in very fast. The biggest tide in the world is the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia at 40 feet. So we're only a couple feet off the biggest tide in the world. In the wintertime, nothing lives out there. Nothing. If I took a glass or a pitcher of that water, it has the consistency of chocolate milk. It is very, very brackish because of all the glacial silt out underneath that water. But in the summer, we got 2 things. We got salmon and beluga whale. In the year 2000, they did an aerial survey. They counted about 1,300 belugas living in Cook Inlet and Turnagain Arm. There's 5 different ranges of beluga throughout the state. The ones that live in Cook Inlet and Turnagain Arm, their range does not overlap any other range. They've been isolated for so long, they have grown genetically distinct. In the year 2010, they did another survey. They only counted about 300. Scientists did not know the drastic decline in the beluga. They believe it was pollution, but that village of Tyoning, across the water from us, had been harvesting belugas as a subsistence food source for 1,000 years. But only on average about 4 to 6 animals a year. So in that 10-year period, that'll only be 40 to 60 animals, not 1,000 animal decline. So after 2010, they put the Cook Inlet and Turnagain Arm belugas on the critically endangered species list. So now they're protected, they're not hunted. 2020, we do the surveys every 10 years. They counted about 324. They only do the official surveys every 10 years, but they do smaller surveys every year. And the last survey they did a couple weeks ago, they counted about 389. So they're slowly making a comeback. But basically, you just don't hunt them, let them be. People always ask, well, why don't you just bring some belugas from up north? We have about 200,000 belugas throughout the state. And I said, yeah, that would be great. I said, but the problem is because these whales have been breeding amongst themselves, their immune system has been compromised. If you take a whale from up north, it might have a disease that all these animals don't have an immune system to. It can wipe out the whole population in one fell swoop. So the best thing for us to do is just let it be. And we see belugas from April all the way through October. But there's a small population base. And all you're going to be looking at is for the backs of the belugas. A baby beluga is about 5 feet, 130 pounds, and it's the same color as that water. A mama beluga is about 11 feet, 1,300 pounds, and a daddy beluga is about 15 feet, 3,300 pounds. And why belugas are at home in that water where no other animals are is because they have echolocation. They basically have sonar. They're like a bat, but underwater. So they don't need to see where they're going. So right here on the left, this is McHugh Creek. This is where that forest fire happened. If you look up the side of the mountain, you're going to notice all this burned down in 2017. A gentleman was backpacking, and he did not put his fire out properly. The fire spread rapidly. He was able to make a phone call, and they came in with helicopters and airplanes to put that fire out. They charged him dollar for dollar what it cost to put that fire out. His fine was in excess of $100,000, and he had to do time in jail.
Painful.
You see this mesh net here on the side of the road right here? This was all put up after that 2018 earthquake. That was the area where that rock came down on that semi-truck. So after that, they started putting a protective mesh barrier. Anything to make it safer, I'm all for it. So there's another animal that we're going to be looking for today. It's called a Dall sheep, spelled D-A-L-L, named after William Healy Dall. William Healy Dall was a naturalist that came up here in the 1800s. He named 20 different animals after himself. His two most famous are the Dall sheep and the Dall porpoise. But there is also a Dall grizzly bear. And he was really into clams and mollusks. He named a lot of them after himself. But William Healy Dall is not just an important person in Alaskan history. He's an important person in American history. He is the founding father of the National Geographic Society. He's basically America's version of Charles Darwin. He was one of the first scientists that came to Alaska after it was purchased from Russia. So this is our first stop. It's called Beluga Point. You're going to notice a couple telescopes. There's a box around those telescopes. Stay inside that box. And if you want your picture taken, please ask. I'll get your photo for you. I take pictures all day long. I'll know exactly where to stand. So we're going to go right over here to the right. And when you exit the vehicle, make sure and look both ways because the traffic that's coming down this road is not looking right in front of them. They're looking at the scenic beauty around them. And I'm going to show you how the proper way to exit the vehicle. And after I show you the first time, just do it that way for the rest of the day. Don't touch the door. I'm the only one that touches the door.
It's really hard. Nietos y todo.